Let's now talk about the last type of heat transfer mechanism which I want to speak about, and that is radiation. So far we have talked about conduction and convection, and both of them need a medium. Okay. So if you want to conduct, let's say, heat transfer between one body to the other, you need a medium, the body itself. Or for that matter, when we talked about convection, we had air, okay, which was facilitating either free convection or forced convection. But is that the only mode of heat transfer? And the answer is no. We receive energy from sun, right? So here is a person sitting, and there is energy that is received from sun far away. And clearly, although there is atmosphere close to this person, but you know, so many kilometers away, there is really no atmosphere. So you could in principle have, heat transfer without medium and through photons. Okay. Essentially this is through electromagnetic radiation. Right. So this is very different than conduction and convection. So I receive heat from sun, and that's because the temperature of this body is very high, and it just simply radiates heat, and I can collect some of this heat, and that's what is heat transfer through radiation. So if I have a hot body, does that radiate too? And the answer is yes. In fact, it turns out all bodies radiate. Okay, and there is an electromagnetic radiation, and higher the temperature, higher would be the quantum of radiation. So there is a nice law that has been proposed by the Stefan Boltzmann law. So let me write it for you. So they found or proposed that the heat flux actually is given as epsilon times sigma times T to the fourth. Okay, so it's heavily nonlinear, unlike conduction. So conduction is pretty much a linear phenomena. Convection, as you know, we have the Newton's law itself is linear, but then the convective process itself is nonlinear because of the velocity field. Okay, but in terms of temperature it is linear. Now we talk about radiation, which is actually fairly nonlinear, in fact T to the fourth. So let's look at these various quantities. Q, of course, is the heat flux. That's a given. Epsilon is the emissivity, and that's is always less than or equal to 1. Okay. Sigma is actually the Stefan Boltzmann constant, and that's given as 5.67 into 10 to the minus 8 with these units, which is watt per meter square and Kelvin to the fourth. Okay. And T, of course, is the temperature of the surface. Okay. So by using this law, the Stefan Boltzmann law, we can conclude that all bodies are going to have a heat flux associated with them, and that's related to the temperature. Clearly, if you have a hot body, that radiates far more than a body at low temperature. So radiation is typically important only for bodies which are at very high temperature. So if I have an electric furnace, for example, or any other furnace where the temperature is very high, and then if I keep an object in an oven, then of course I am going to get heating because of convection, because of conduction, and also by radiation. But you know, if I have a body which is being exposed to other bodies which are at low temperature, then radiation is not going to be important. So that's all I wanted to say about radiation. As far as this course is concerned, we are only going to talk about conduction and convection and not about radiation. In fact, the treatment for conduction and convection is also very, very preliminary, just to kind of give you an exposure to what these mechanisms for heat transfer are. So now we are going to talk about conduction in more detail. Let's now start with looking at the unsteady heat conduction. So we want to look at the mathematical model, and this would be in the form of a differential equation. So as we did in fluid mechanics, you could look at an integral approach versus you could look at a differential approach. Okay? And just to give you a flavor, I am going to present to you the differential approach. So if we have a stationary medium, which means we are going to neglect the convection related transfer, and of course we will also assume that radiation is not important. So just the heat conduction. Then the differential form of the equation is given as rho C del T by del T. This is divergence of K gradient of T plus STH. So let's look at these terms. So rho, of course, as we have followed this terminology, this is the density. C is the specific heat of the body, the specific heat capacity. T, of course, is the temperature, small t is the time, K is the conductivity, and K gradient T, as you are aware, so recall that Q, the heat flux, is given as minus K gradient of T by the Fourier's law. So that's what is appearing here. So we are saying this is the divergence of the negative of the heat flux. Okay? And STH is actually the source term. So we are talking about a source that is being distributed in the body for which we are looking at the conduction. So that's the balance law. And the balance law is very clear that if I had a body and I am looking at the spatial change of heat flux, okay, so between two stations, if I had a change in heat flux, so that's the divergence of heat flux. It could be because of two things. A, because either I have a heat source. So if STH is greater than 0, that's the source term, and it is less than 0 for sink. So I could also have a sink where I draw out certain amount of heat. So that's one way of change of heat flux, and the other is, of course, it's an unsteady process. Okay, so even if this term is 0, there are no heat sources or sinks, I could still have a spatial change in heat flux, and that could be because I have changes taking place in time. Okay, so that's the mathematical model which describes heat conduction in totality. We can now try to look at a one-dimensional model for this and simplify it, and then of course all these derivatives would reduce to simply del T by del X kind of a situation, and one can write down the one-dimensional equation. So let's look at some of the notation which people use quite often. So there's a ratio alpha which we call as diffusivity, and that's often K by rho C. In fact, the correct name is thermal diffusivity. Okay. So you can see there are two independent properties. There is of course the heat capacity, and there is the heat conductivity. Of course density is there as well. So either you could specify these three quantities, or you could specify any two of them and the diffusivity, but that's just the nomenclature. Okay, if we had a situation where we have a homogeneous, the material is homogeneous, that means K is not a function of X. And if that happens, then I can pull out the K outside this divergence operator, and then I would get divergence of gradient of T, which is actually the Laplacian of T, and then my equation would become rho C del T by del T. This is K times the conductivity times Laplacian of T plus STH. So this is the operating equation for the unsteady heat conduction, linear heat conduction, because K we have assumed it to be independent of temperature. Okay. Now what about the Laplacian operator? We have looked at it in the fluid mechanics part as well, but let me repeat it for you. So del square T, as you recall, is simply del square T by del X square del Y square and D square. This is in Cartesian coordinates. However, if you want to go to cylindrical polar coordinates, then this operator would be del by del R square plus 1 by R del by del R plus 1 by R square del square by del theta square plus del square by del Z square, and of course I can put in a T here. Okay. So you can then write this equation either in Cartesian coordinates by simply substituting for the Laplacian of temperature, or in the cylindrical polar coordinates, or for that matter in the spherical coordinates as well, which I am not putting here right now, but you could look through a handbook. Okay, what happens in one dimension? So in 1D, I have only x coordinate, so I could write this equation as rho C del T by del T this is kappa del square T by del x square plus STH. So this is your unsteady heat conduction equation in one dimension with a distributed heat source. If the heat source or heat sink is not there, this term goes away and then you have an even more simplified equation. Let's go back to this equation, the more general equation, and I want to talk about what are the other conditions that are needed for solving this equation. So clearly this is a partial differential equation, first order in time and second order in space. Okay? So we will need initial conditions and boundary conditions. So what could those be? So first let's talk about initial conditions. So we need to specify the temperature at T equal to 0. So suppose we say that my T, the temperature field, is a function of x and T. Okay? Then the initial condition is that T at all x but at T equal to 0, this has to be specified, and let me call that as T0. And this has to be at all x. So it could be a uniform temperature everywhere, or it could be a temperature distribution. Okay, so that's the initial condition. What about the boundary conditions? And this is where the fun begins. We can have a variety of boundary conditions. So let's go through them. So the first kind of boundary condition that you could have is a temperature condition. To give you an example, I could, for example, have a body, and this is the surface of the body. So let me call this as S. S is the surface. And I could say that I will specify the temperature at the surface of this body. So T at x and T at the body is given as Ts as a function of x and T. Okay? So in some sense, if I want to do heat transfer analysis of, let's say, my body, then I could specify what is the temperature at the surface of my body and then solve elsewhere as a conduction problem. Okay? So that's the simple temperature condition. We could have other conditions also, for example, a flux condition. So I could have a body, let's say, sitting in a ground, maybe a solar panel, and it is receiving some heat flux from sun, radiation. And I want to look at the heat conduction on the solar panel and its support and other things. So the boundary condition on the panel surface could be, of course, if I could also say, well, that's the temperature on the surface, if I knew that. That could be one kind of a boundary condition. Or I could simply give a flux condition that there is so much heat flux radiation that I get from the sun. So this condition is actually given as Q dot N, which is actually equal to Qn, is specified at the boundary. And notice that Qn is actually minus kappa del T by del N. So if I have an insulated or an adiabatic boundary, then I could say that Qn is 0, which actually implies that I am specifying a condition on the temperature gradient. So the temperature gradient normal to the boundary is 0, it doesn't change. Okay, so that would be a very special case of a flux condition, but I have an insulated boundary, so no heat exchange. Okay. I could also have a condition which I call as the convection boundary condition. So convection boundary condition. So suppose I have a solid and a fluid interface. So let me give you an example. So here is the boundary where this is a solid and this is a fluid. This fluid could be either a liquid or a gas. And I am interested in actually solving for the heat conduction problem inside the solid. But the interface is with the fluid. So what is the boundary condition that I give on this interface? That's the question. Clearly, the heat conductivity inside the solid is K. Okay? And if I draw the temperature profile, perhaps my profile looks like this. I don't know yet, but I am just guessing. So this is the temperature profile. And this here is my temperature gradient. Okay, so if I draw a tangent to the temperature profile, then I could get the slope of how my T is changing along the normal to this interface. So notice this is my unit normal. So I would also like to plot the fluid. So clearly the fluid temperature must match the solid temperature at the interface. So there is no doubt about that. The fluid has a temperature exactly the same. But then it could do this. So this is the fluid temperature far away, but it gets heated up near the interface at the solid. So what I could do is that TW is the wall temperature. So this is, I can say this is T wall. And the boundary conditions are, if T is my temperature in solid, then I could say that T is equal to T wall. So this is one condition. And the other is, if I look at the heat flux, so the heat flux from the solid side is going to be minus K del T by del N. This is from the solid side. And the same heat flux should also be from the fluid side, which I can use the Newton's law of cooling, which is given as H, which is the film conductance, times T wall minus Tf. So therefore, my boundary condition is minus K del T del N is H times Tw by Tf. This is the boundary condition that I get at the solid fluid interface. I could think of an extremely special case. Okay, so let me give you the example of a well stirred bath. So I have this fluid which is far away at a temperature Tf. What if I force a convection in it and I mix this fluid very vigorously? So it is almost like I have a plate of iron which is at a very high temperature, and I have water bath, and this water is at 10 degrees centigrade. So clearly the interface, the fluid at the interface of this hot iron would have the same temperature as the solid body, but then far away it would be 10 degrees. But now if I vigorously mix this fluid, then of course the entire fluid would have the same temperature. And suppose I am able to maintain the temperature at Tf, then what would happen? I would have a temperature very close to the fluid temperature even at the solid interface, and then things get very interesting. So let's draw that picture. So this now is my interface, the same interface, and I am drawing the temperature. This is my T, this is my Tw, and here is my fluid where I say that T wall is nearly equal to Tf. And now you can ask, how am I going to ensure this continuity? Okay, how can I say that the heat flux from the solid side is being accounted for the heat flux from the fluid side, because now Tw is nearly equal to Tf. Okay, so Qw is minus K del T del N, and this is H Tw my Tf. So this is nearly 0 and this is nearly infinite. So therefore what we are saying is that for a well stirred bath, H tends to infinity, and then the product of these two, a very large quantity and a very small quantity, that gives me a finite quantity, and that actually is the heat flux. Okay. All right, one last boundary condition, and that's actually at the solid-solid interface. So the last condition that I want to show you is the solid interface. So let's imagine there are two bodies in contact, and this is the interface. This is body 1, this is body 2, and this has a conductivity of K1 and this has a conductivity of K2. Let's assume that K1 is greater than K2 without any loss of generality. Okay. So what should the interface condition look like? So let me draw a temperature profile. So maybe this is the temperature for the body 1, and for the body 2 perhaps I have the temperature profile like this. Now if I draw the tangent, then I can get the slopes of the temperature profiles. Okay, at the interface I must have T1 equal to T2. Okay, so the temperature from body 1 and temperature from body 2, they must match at the interface. I cannot have a non-unique temperature at a point. It's not possible. Each point must have a unique temperature. So that is a very natural or an intuitive condition. So this is continuity of temperature. The second condition is of the flux. Okay, so if I take an infinitesimal section at this interface, then the flux from the left and the flux from the right, they should be identical. So let's do that. So Q1 should be equal to Q2, which is continuity of flux. Now this is the unit normal for for 2, actually we can state 1, doesn't matter. This is the unit normal 2. Okay, so we can write that minus K del T by del N at 1 should be equal to minus K 2 del T by del N at 2. So since K1 is greater than K2, because I have taken this conductivity to be larger, so I must have del T by del N from the side 1, it should be smaller than del T by del N at 2. Okay. And that's what I have drawn. So essentially at the interface, at the solid-solid interface, just like we had for two immiscible fluids when we talked about the continuity of stresses. So we talked about the shear rates when the viscosities are different. We have fairly identical conditions here for conductivity also. So for the balance of flux, the temperature gradients have to match in this manner to ensure that there is equilibrium. Okay, so we will stop here, and I just wanted to recap for you what we have done today. So we motivated the three mechanisms for heat transfer, which are conduction, convection and radiation, and we looked at the mathematical model for each one of them very quickly. Okay. So for conduction it is the Fourier law. For convection we had the Newton's law of cooling in terms of the film conductance, and then we had the Stefan-Boltzmann law for the radiation. And then we took the, looked at the unsteady heat conduction, and we understood what the various terms are, and we identified what are the initial and boundary conditions to solve this equation. We will continue this with in the next class. Thank you very much.